Welcome to everyone for our July 2022 Greenfield Human Rights Commission meeting. So I'll bring us to order at 6:03 p.m. Monday, July 11th. And my two chairperson statements. One, if anyone is recording this meeting, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Is anyone recording the meeting?
GCTV is recording this.
Okay, so thank you, Philippe. And
You're welcome.
we will note it as such. Usually we don't have that opportunity, but it's nice to have a video, visual, oral archive. So great that you're doing that. And second statement, no person shall address a meeting of a public body without the permission of the chairperson. And all persons shall, at the request of the chair, remain silent. If after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order that person to withdraw from the meeting. And if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. That said, Wid, I'll ask you if you wouldn't mind just doing a roll call, and if you wouldn't mind, just for official presence, first name and last name as well, and just signal as your name is called that you are present. Thank you. Wid?
Daniel Yarowitz.
Present.
Wendy Goodman. Well, we see her there, so.
Wendy, try to get on the voice. We can come back just so we can get it.
Let me make sure this is right. Simone.
I said present.
Right?
Okay.
Felipe Simone.
Philippe Simone is here. Thank you.
Okay, and Irene Woods.
Present.
And Wid Perry, present. And we have a guest, I see, Lois.
And just to note, Wid, as of 6:06, we have not yet seen, oh, I think Empress is coming on. I'm hoping so. I just saw her name in one of our Hollywood Squares boxes. Empress,
And
are you
Empress-
here with us?
Yes, I was having issues with the browser getting in.
Okay. Okay. So great. All six of us who are currently on the commission are present. And I guess at this time, seeing that both of our new members are present, I guess it's time to give kind of a formal as these things get, give a formal welcome and greeting to both Philippe and Irene. And I wonder if, as we get to know you and you get to know us, either of you and both of you, if you'd be willing to just share a few words about each of yourselves, what brings you to us on the commission at this time, and anything you'd like us to know about you that we probably don't. So happy to give a couple of minutes over to each of you.
Okay, I'm happy to go first. I'm Irene Woods. I have lived in Greenfield since 1980. And currently I retired after many years working for Department of Children and Families and became the director at the Children's Advocacy Center in Greenfield. I've served on other commissions. I served on the Rec Commission for a few years, and probably the last 9 or 10 years I was on the Mayor's Domestic Violence Task Force. And I felt like 10 years was really quite a long time on one commission. And so I saw openings here and decided to toss my name into the pool of people. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know all of you and talking about things that are going on in Greenfield.
Irene, we're delighted to have you, and I'm glad you were able to make it to a kind of a 6 o'clock startup. So
yeah, it worked fine today. Yeah.
Good. And Philippe, what would you like to share about yourself, just as a starting
It was
point?
very easy for me to attend the meeting on time because I'm recording it here at work. And so that's a perfect, I finish at 6 and begin this meeting at 6. I was the Human Rights Commission chair back in, I think it was 2016. And after serving on the Human Rights Commission, once I'd moved to Greenfield and kind of settled in here, I felt it was one of my, I guess, responsibility to belong to something like that, to take some of the experience that I've had in my life and just apply it here, to take some of the richness and positive energy that I've gotten from being in a multicultural setting or multicultural community. It's so valuable and so enjoyable that I felt like I wanted to share that whole aspect with the town of Greenfield, and so that we could enjoying each other. And also, I think that there's a lot of things that need to be done. And I'm very grieved by cost of living, housing costs, especially for working people, and as well, mental health is something that needs to take priority. It relates to so much different types of behavior. It has so much of a spillover into society in so many ways that we really, what can the Human Rights Commission do to help this become a more compassionate and more serving community or state? And also some of the things that I'd like to investigate and learn a lot more. I've been pouring through the charter and the human rights guidelines and procedures, and I want to learn a lot more about what are the legal guidelines and procedures that we deal with. What are the exact procedures that we deal with when we have complaints and so on and so forth. That's all I'm going to say right now, because I know I'm long-winded. And I am just very happy to be with all of you. Thank you.
Oh, well, welcome back to you, Philippe. And again, so who we see here is who we are at this point in time. I do want to say that we have been through a lot of personnel transition over the last few months. And just to make official the fact that another member, a longtime member of our commission and a former chair herself, Lorene Flockersy, has decided to step off the commission after 10 years of service. And so last month was her last meeting, as well as Mo Lyons and Carolyn McDaniel. And before that, Pete Smith, who was the former vice chair, stepped off, I believe it was in March of this year. So we are gathered. Yes, Wendy?
I guess with that, just because there are two new people, I'd like to clarify that Pete stepped off primarily because of some personal issues that were coming up, and that he didn't swear in, that there was an oversight. So that people might want to know that, and that Carolyn just got a new job and just was very upset about needing to leave, but she had a 2-hour round trip commute. So she left. And both Mo and Maureen had been on the commission for a very long time. And the commission is changing. We've been a little bit more proactive. But just to have some context of why 4 people left in such a short time.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. It's also part of the natural ebb and flow of these kinds of commissions. Tonight, we'll come to it in a while. It's our annual election night for our officers. We had an election that was delayed a couple of months last year, partly because of COVID and technical challenges. We had the election last September, but we're going to bring it back on track and have our election for chair, vice chair, and clerk a little later in the meeting. And the hope is that we will continue to recruit new members. At this point, the charter calls for us to have a maximum of 9 members. As we know, when it comes to votes, it's always best to have an odd number of folks, but we have who we have here, and I'm delighted to, again, welcome new folks and settle in with the folks who are continuing from this point forward. And at this point, I do want to just say that I did send to both Philippe and to Irene the new booklet of our onboarding procedures about a week ago. I hope that both of you have received it and had a chance to at least peruse it, if not take it in a little bit in greater depth. But that's something that we worked on to a great extent in the fall. And so you two are the first new members. Well, actually, Empress, as a member who joined us earlier in the spring, had also seen that. But it's a joy to have kind of a testimonial and a booklet that talks about our practices and such. And it's a living document. So the hope is that we will continue to grow and mature as an organization and continue to find ways to improve the framing and the wording and the structure of that little booklet. So at this point, I'd like to move on. Normally at this point, we look at the minutes from our last meeting and from June 13th. I just want to say as well, just to double check, I believe that both Philippe and Irene were sworn in at City Hall. Is that correct? As voting members? Great.
Yes, indeed, by Kathy Scott.
Good, good, good.
And I have my certificate of, is that the certificate that you need to get for conflict of interest law.
Yes, yes, and the training, of course. Okay, good. So we are all official, and the roles may be changing. We don't know. That will come up, as I said, a little later on. But for those who have seen the minutes and were in the June meeting, the four of us who were part of that, I guess, are there any emendations or other suggestions? Yes, Wid.
Well, actually, we never approved a special meeting of May 23rd. That special meeting with 35 people and the question and answer stuff, we never approved those minutes. It was tabled last month. I think a person who's no longer with us had an issue with it. So in that we tabled it. But those minutes were never approved for May 23rd.
Okay, so we should back up and go to that. I don't know, Philippe or Irene, if you attended that meeting. It was a very strong public meeting, as Wid said, that had approximately 35 people, far more than we usually get. But because of the issues involved, a lot of people not only attended, but participated. Wid, do you want to direct us forward on the approval of those minutes then for that meeting before we get to the June meeting?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the May 23rd minutes.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners who? Okay. So seconded by Wendy. Any discussion of those minutes or emendations? Any changes, suggestions?
There were a few suggestions that Wendy made, and I did fix those. We talked about the edits last month, so they're on the record in the June minutes of what was changed in the May minutes.
Right. So you'd already made those changes into the minutes then, Wid, that was suggested from last month. Excellent. Okay. So beyond that, any other comments on the May 23rd minutes? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Yeah, Wendy?
Just again, Wid, thank you for taking such good minutes. Great job. That's my comment.
All right. Okay, so again, since we're on Zoom, we we have to vote according to our names. So if you are in favor of approving the minutes as such, please just say your name and that you approve.
I don't know what they're going to.
Philippe approve.
Excellent.
Wendy approve.
Empress approve.
Irene approves.
With approves.
Okay, and Daniel approves as well. So Thank you. Those minutes go in unanimously as revised. And that brings us to our last meeting, which was Monday, June 13th. And I think, Whit, I don't remember exactly when you distributed those, but knowing how timely you are, it was probably just a couple of days after the meeting.
And I got feedback on those minutes. No one had an issue as far as any edits or anything.
Does anyone have any suggestions or emendations on those minutes from June? Okay, well, let's take a motion to approve then, if someone would like to do that.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of June 13th, 2022.
Okay. Any seconds out there?
Second,
Thank you, Philippe. Okay, so all, as you wish, all in favor, please say approve and your name, and then we'll go from there. See where the vote is.
Irene approves.
Philippe approve.
Wendy
Empress ab-
abstain.
Wendy's abstaining. Okay. Empress
Approve.
approve.
And Wood approves.
Okay, and Daniel, I approve as well. So we have five approve, one abstention, and the minutes go in as written.
So what happens, guys, is Daniel, I'll type the minutes up in the next day or two. I send them out to the commission for any feedback, but they're not sent to the mayor's office. We approve them on the next month. So tonight we approved those two sets of minutes. So tomorrow I'll forward them to the mayor's office and they'll post them.
Excellent. So at this point, Aaron, I think it makes sense. We usually bring you in to share any information from the mayor's office in your role as Director of Communications. Anything that you would care to share and put by all of us?
Well, first of all, thank you, Daniel, and welcome to the two new commissioners. Thank you for stepping up and answering the call. The only thing I have to share this time around is the remote meeting law extension. We don't know what's going to happen. We think it's going to be extended, but there's a House version and a Senate version, and they have to be reconciled. Currently, the remote meeting provisions end on Friday, though we're fairly confident that there will be some new provisions in place by the time the HRC is scheduled to meet again on August 8th.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll know more before we meet again in August. And you'll let us know, I guess, Aaron, how that's moving along. And I also want to just note that we have two guests at this point. Their names appear on the screen. I don't see a visual. Lois and Judy Scherer, if I pronounce that last name correctly. And I just want to say welcome. And if you have any comments or questions as we go forward, please feel free to speak up. But I won't know how to call on you. You'll just have to put yourself out there and let us know what you're thinking or what you'd like to know more about. But welcome. Do any of the commissioners have any announcements about upcoming events or any other information that we would like to know from within the commission?
I'm going to ask that Wid, would you talk about the email that you sent out about that meeting on July 29th?
Yeah, so thank you for reminding me. I did send an email, and I'll forward it to Irene and Felipe this week when I get your emails at the end of the meeting. On July 29th, there's going to be a Zoom meeting. I believe it's at 12 o'clock on July 29th. And it's about the AMRIS program. The AMRIS program is doing what they call a C-Press. I don't have the stuff right in front of me, but it's basically the working with the police department and civilian clinicians with the race, equality, inclusion focus, and trying to really bring that into community in official capacity. So Earl Miller, who I worked with at the Department of Health for the last 3 or 4 years and has been my mentor in the REI, is running that program. And on Friday, the 29th, he's going to give a presentation to talk about that. And I forwarded the email to Caitlin at the mayor's office. I believe she shared it with her team and with Chief Gordon, who seemed to be interested. So it'll be interesting to be a part of that and to listen to what Earl has to say.
Okay, thank you.
We have a
Rick.
general announcement about something that's going on in the United States right now.
Mhm.
And the League of Women Voters is doing as much as they can to support community media and free speech. And they are going to be having, it's called digital equity. And so they're looking at websites and internet access, as well as like community media access and funding. So if it's something that you want to learn about, the Alliance for Community Media has information about that. And your local League of Women Voters can be contacted to tell them to let you know what's going on with that campaign. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Philippe. I wanted to share, just so folks here know, and folks on who may want to listen to this recording, that next Wednesday, I believe that's the 20th of July, Wendy Goodman and I will be on the radio with Dan Torres on his Panorama radio show. Now that's going to be via Skype. I'm not sure the date that it will actually come forward. I don't know if you have more information than I do on that, Wendy, but we will be talking about issues relating to the Human Rights Commission and Greenfield and so on. I just know that that's the date that we will be talking with Dan Torres on Skype. Do you have any more information on that, Wendy?
Just, I'm not going to risk getting to my email because I'm on my phone, not on my computer. But my understanding is it will not be aired when we're talking, that it airs Saturday morning on a podcast called Panorama. But we can send out an email after we have the conversation with Dan and make sure we've got the right information and send that out to everybody. That is a result of the Buzz had talked to me after Buzz talked to Daniel about the Nature Gap forum that we had, and then Dan asked to talk to both of us, primarily because they've also lost their Greenfield contact when Chris died. So they feel a void about what's going on in Greenfield. It's an opportunity for us to help them to have the voice that we want them to have.
So more info will be forthcoming when we find out about it, as far as when it's airing. But just folks should know that it's nice that many of us are having those opportunities. Empress, I know we'll be hearing a little later on from you, at least I hope, about the opportunities post Juneteenth that maybe you've had to share information with folks. And I think actually that's where we're heading at this time. And I leave it for others who attended to maybe share, but just to say for folks and for the record that Juneteenth, which was Sunday, June 19th at this point for this year, one of our newer commissioners, Chris Benu, was able to put together, with some support from many people and some support also from a couple of commissioners, a public event in Greenfield. And I'd like us to be able to talk about that experience, especially from your perspective, Empress, and any kind of post-event follow-ups that may have appeared in the media, just so we have a way of knowing what's on the record from that event. Would you like to share from your perspective as the coordinator of that event, how it went for you and what you thought?
Thank you, Daniel. Well, Juneteenth was, I definitely feel like it was definitely a positive step in the right direction for our community as a whole. I really have nothing but positivity to say about Juneteenth and how excited I am knowing that this is just something that's going to keep on going. But as far as post Juneteenth right now, Juneteenth wasn't just for just Juneteenth. It was also an open doorway for the grassroots organization Advocacy for Black-owned business in Franklin County. I was recently at the Greenfield Mind and Share, and I did a speech on Black-owned business with them. And I also invited one of the Africana dancers from Northampton to come, and she performed and was able to set up her table as well. I was invited to be part of 2 other events where I'm going to invite more Black-owned business owners in Franklin County. I'm also outreaching with a lot of businesses out in Springfield towards Hampden County because basically, because that could bring a lot of business here to Franklin County as far as Black-owned business. So right now, that's my focus right now, post Juneteenth.
Great. And again, anyone who was there, if you'd like to offer some reflections on the event, and it came at a critical time, I think, for us as a city, given some of the political perturbations that have been happening and whatnot. And it was my understanding, I wish I'd been able to be there, but it was a very unifying event across ages and sectors and cohorts. And I wish I had more to say about it from a personal perspective, but there were some who showed up, and I wonder if you want to enter any of your reflections into this. Yes, whose hand is up? Okay.
It's Judy. I did go to that event. I was only able to go for a little while, but it was lovely. It was really, the drumming was tremendous. And Tracy from the CDC gave a very rousing talk. It was really a great event. Any event with silky chickens in it, you just can't go wrong.
Thank you for speaking up and sharing that from your experience. Appreciate that. Wendy?
It was fantastic. And kudos to you, Empress. You pulled it off quickly with lots of support, but with an enormous amount of coordination on your side. It was inclusive. It was in an area that everyone could access. It was a diverse showing of people, and it was a festive acknowledgement of Juneteenth and who we want to be. So kudos to you, Empress. And you know that you should start planning for next year, right? Because it's going to have to be bigger and better.
I was there for 45 minutes. I was there for like 45 minutes or so, but Empress, she's the charming hostess. I watched her. Everybody who came through the gate, she would greet personally. She talked to everybody who was there, and it was just people felt comfortable. There was also 3 or 4 police officers, the chief, and the CSO clinician who's doing the work with the police department. They were there to talk to people, and people just felt comfortable. To be totally honest, there were some, didn't think you alluded to this, there was social media stuff that I was happening post Juneteenth, but Empress did a good job of killing those rumors. People were trying to make an issue about police being there, and so Empress made it clear that they were invited there, and they weren't there for any alternative motion other than just to be there in the community.
My sense is that this was precisely the right kind of event at the perfect time. And I think what you put at the forefront there, Empress, of inclusiveness, inclusion, unity, this past several months has been very, very tough in Greenfield on a lot of levels. And I think that this helped us all to raise our game to another level, to see that this kind of thing is possible and we are capable of coming together in this way. And I think your leadership, of course, just at this time was just lovely. It was just lovely. And I think you've heard lots of appreciations. I think it might have gone as far as Boston in terms of the information that was shared. Do you want to say anything about the Boston Globe and where that went, so people can be filled in on that?
Yes, what did go to Boston, one of the editors from Boston Globe did get in contact with me because they want to do a story around Greenfield with a focus on Juneteenth. So when everything is together, I would definitely will let the commission know about it.
It's great to know. Great to know. When Greenfield can cross over Route 495, that's a big deal. So it's nice to see that we through your event and hopefully into the future are really generating positivity. I'm wondering at this point, just to say, unless there's anything more to be said about Juneteenth, and I did want to check in about the use of the banner. Anyone who was there, and Empress, if you had any problem picking it up and using it for the first time as a full commission at one of our events, how did that go?
I will say that the banner was big, but I loved, I was forewarned about the banner, but the banner was big, and there was, and the way that the stage is at Energy Park, it just kept blowing off. It became more of a headache and stressor than anything, because I had to keep running up there and putting it back up because when the wind blew it down, but it served its purpose. I'm still thankful, the commission allowed me to use it, but I will reiterate, it is big. So I guess if it's out there again, just make sure there's enough space to hang it. It's definitely a learning experience for me. But once again, thank you for letting me use it.
That's great. And we should be forewarned as we enter into other events, battening the hatches and tying it down. But I'm so glad that worked out. And it's good that we had that presence there along with all the other goodness. Wondering if there were any, did I miss someone? Any subcommittee? Yeah, Whit, do you have a hand up?
No, I hit my mute button. Sorry about that.
Okay. Just for folks to be aware, particularly Irene and Philippe, this year we moved more to a subcommittee model to get more work generated and done based on commissioners' interests and the needs of the city. And so to date, we've had a number of different subcommittees, and usually we have allowed time in these meetings for any of those subcommittees who have been meeting to kind of report back on their news and share it with us. Again, any subcommittees meetings that we have to follow the mass OMLs, the open meeting laws, and be announced at least 48 hours in advance and have public access and so on. And a number of the commissioners who have been serving have been on one or more of those committees. And I just wanted to allow time to make space for updates and reports from any of those committees who have met and furthered any of their agendas. So, Wendy, do you want to say something about our school and community culture subcommittee?
Why don't you say something about that, since I'm going to say something about other ones?
Fair enough. So, again, this may be new news for the new folks, but Wendy and I and Pete at a certain point, Pete Smith, when he was with us, became a subcommittee to look at and look into and try to understand some of the issues that were going on internally in the Greenfield public schools that were becoming more public news and more agitated around some of the racial issues, some of the communication issues, and such, especially last summer into the fall. And what I want to be able to bring to folks is that Wendy and I now, as the two remaining members of that subcommittee, have met a couple of times with who I wanted to say, Christine.
Superintendent.
Sorry?
Superintendent.
The superintendent and the assistant superintendent of schools. Just to share, we've met with them at the middle school, which is where the superintendent's office is. And just have a chance to really talk about and learn about and think things through with them. Let them know of our availability, our interest, our commitment, our concern about the public schools and what's happening with them, and that we are eager to be of help and support to the schools and the various cohorts that comprise the public schools. So we met with them in mid-June during, I think, one of the last days of the school year, and just had a real chance to talk about their goals going into next year, the new position that was added that is focusing on the community and working with members of the community and parents and families. And just mostly to drive home the point that we welcome the possibility of our skills and our interests and our desire to support to be reached out to by both Christine and as the lead person in the school commission, school setting, and also how we hope to be able to be meeting with them on a regular basis in the year ahead. So we'll probably meet with them again sometime in August or early September. We don't have a date yet scheduled, but the idea is to keep an evolving conversation moving forward. And again, to make them aware of our desire to be of support. Is there anything you would want to add, Wendy, to that, my little report?
I think just the one thing of, well, two things, I guess. One is that as we're building this relationship, they are more interested in working with us, as we're not going and saying, this is what you need to do, or this is what we think you should do. So that's been very nice that they've reached out and said, yeah, well, let's meet again. Let's see what we can do. The other piece is, and I feel like it is important for us as a commission to be aware of, that there has been more problematic languaging going on in the schools that that was of concern. And the comment that clearly this is not just a school issue, this is a community issue. So just that there seems to be a lot more negative languaging, racist languaging going on, and probably also going on in the community because it's going on in the schools. And the reactions was, this is not, this is not located only in the schools. So just something for us to be aware of that I hadn't heard about prior to this. While the behavior's gotten better than it was, I guess, in September, the conversations and the language is problematic. That's all. Thank you, Daniel.
Sure. Okay. And I do want to say, as our relationship deepens with the members of both the school committee, Greenfield School Committee, and also the leadership of the public schools, if other folks on the commission want to join that committee based on their interests, let Wendy or I know, because there's room for that as well as to develop, new outgrowths. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later. But that's been one of our priorities over the past 10 months or so. Any other reports from subcommittees? Yes, Empress, go ahead.
I'm sorry. First, thank you, Wendy, for that report. But second of all, it was a little vague. So can we have some more information as far as what was said as far as racist, or what was said as far as troubling, or do you not feel comfortable saying it?
I don't have that information. I don't have exactly what was said. It was an overall feeling that while the behavior has gotten better, that what is being said, what is being overheard is problematic. I was not told what those issues were. Otherwise, I would have shared them. I think that what was important to me in hearing that was the awareness that this is not just a school issue and that we shouldn't put it as just a school issue, that this is a community issue. That Empress, quite frankly, I think your Juneteenth got at to some extent in bringing everybody together, but that there's something, and I can't answer that because I don't know any more than what I said. But I did feel it was important for us to realize that for those of us that may not be aware, as myself, that this is going on in the community.
Let me try to dig a little deeper into that. One of the things that we have talked about in the meetings that we've had has been that this has been a very, very transitional year for the public schools. There's been a lot of personnel turnover of some key players on the staff, some senior members, and some new jobs have been added. And Christine has talked a lot about the re-socialization process after having a lost year due to COVID, and trying to reconnect many of the kids at school into kind of more socialized patterns of behavior. And we don't get into the nitty-gritty of who said what to whom and such, but this has been a general feeling of reflection. And the hope is that some of the plans that they're putting into place next year in terms of curriculum, featuring new curriculum on social emotional learning, will be really helpful in terms of the staff and the teachers really working at a greater level of depth around the sense of connectedness and also the sense of isolation that so many children in the schools and young people, not just the elementary school, but the challenges of reconnecting and cooperation and collaboration. And that it's not unique to Greenfield, that this is, as they've said to us many times, this is part of a national challenge that's going on. And Greenfield is in the same place as many, many other school situations. But as we get more in depth and more detail, I think we'll be able to share out more that gets said. We've been more on a general level and more on a learning plane. And I hope in future meetings that we'll be able to be more proactive. So I hope that's helpful. Yeah.
Thanks, Daniel. And that said, we also did talk about just brainstorming wise, like, so is there something that we could do? And I don't know what it is, and I'm not saying that I do. It was just a question. Is there something that we can do that in the community that would also tie in with the school, so that the message is coming not just from the school, but it's also coming in the community to families, not just to the kids? And we didn't talk about what that might look like or if that's feasible, but it was part of what I think, at least I heard from it, was that there are things that we can do in the community that support the school in terms of human rights that might not be in the school, but that us as a community, that we as a community commission might be able to support and be, the other side of the seesaw with them, so to speak. And we'll see what happens with that, but that is a possibility.
Thank you, Wendy. Philippe, did you have a hand up? I thought I saw you kind of maybe.
Yeah, I just wanted to simply say that you were both in the right direction, talking about community and talking about how this is just not simply a school issue. This kind of behavior is generational. And I think that a lot of interest in the community and events like what Empress had we need to do a lot more of those and to reach out to the families directly. Because I think that this is not behavior that kids pick up in school. It's something that's generational.
We'll be keying on this as we move into the next school year and sharing it back. Thank you, Philippe. Were there any other subcommittees that have been engaged in the past month that want to share anything? I think Wendy, you might have spoken that you had something that you wanted to offer.
Well, they haven't been engaged. I don't know, Whit, if you want to say anything about and we should probably change the name of what this subcommittee is to environmental justice. But I guess because Philippe and Irene are new, I just want to go to we have looked at environmental justice. Wait, do you want to say something instead of me? I'm happy to defer to you. I guess not.
You do it so much better. Go ahead.
I don't know that that's true, but so there's history that I won't go into, but we have an environmental justice subcommittee. We did a forum that unfortunately was supposed to be recorded, but there was some glitch. But we had some good attendance, and the net of it was that people would like to continue talking about environmental justice, but primarily issues of transportation, river access, and diversity in our public meetings and on our public commissions. Those were the three issues that came out that people said, yes, we'd like to continue talking about it. So Whit and I have not met. We are the only two now on this committee, on this subcommittee, but would like to meet again, I don't know, in August or September to move forward and have some other forum and figure out what and how we want to do that. So I just wanted to talk about it so that if either Philippe or Irene are interested, I'm happy to talk with you more about why, where it came from, what was the impetus, where we are now, and what's happened.
And you're referring to the Environmental Justice Subcommittee?
Yes, and you were at the forum that I spoke
Yes.
about, Philippe. But yes, it's a subcommittee of, so we did that. Now what? And the now what is some kind of a follow-on meeting and conversation. And we welcome you if you're interested. Uh-oh, and it looks like I froze. No, I didn't. There I am.
Well, thank you, Wendy. And the hope, the feeling from that event was that there should be some forward motion. What it looks like and what it does is really up to the folks who want to spirit it along. But it certainly sits right square in the middle of our work as the Human Rights Commission. There's a lot of different pieces to it. And it was a very, very stimulating back and forth discussion, great presentations. And I hope that we will move forward with more from that and look forward to seeing how that evolves in the months ahead.
And a lot of those technical issues that we experience have been solved.
Oh, good.
Oh, good. Well, it was just a one-off then, I guess. Hopefully in the future, we'll have an archive.
Certainly not a one-off.
For us, I hope, since it was our first public event in quite some time, we'll catch a better drift with the technology. But Irene, since you're the only one that really wasn't at the event, I'm happy to talk with you more about it and what it was if you're interested. I don't want to lay it on you, but if you're interested, I'm happy to have a conversation with you.
I think what would be helpful at some point is what are the committees that you already have? So, I might know what they all are before I make any decisions.
Well,
I think that's what we're in process of doing.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Thank you for the segue, Irene, because item number 12, which we're now at, is exactly that. Yes,
Wait,
Wendy?
There is another subcommittee though that I don't know if it was a subcommittee. We named it a subcommittee, which was the idea of getting more diversity working with the Northampton Human Rights Commission had worked with their council and the Northampton Council now has a subcommittee or a task force looking at how to increase diversity in their governance and in their public meetings. And we were looking at trying to do the same here. I had contacted Ginny DeSorga and she just got overloaded. So it's back in my plate. I don't know what there is for us to do with it. But that is something else that we're undertaking. I will contact one of the counselors, but if somebody else is interested in working with that, that would be awesome as well.
So this gets to the question you just raised, Irene, you know, how these subcommittees really come up out of the passion and the interest of the commissioners themselves. And then we kind of talk through the parameters and so on as a full embodied commission, and folks then go off, and as long as they follow the mass open meeting laws and announce the meetings properly and have minutes and such, then we're able to really do things, you know, between meetings, because we do meet once a month for close to 2 hours, but we have felt for a while that that might not be enough to get some of the significant work done that we can bring to the meetings, because every meeting can't just be a meeting of these various subcommittees. So those were the three. There was a committee that was suggested that really never got off the ground, and that was a committee that was designed to look at our calendar, our internal calendar as a human rights commission, in terms of trying to prioritize in advance the kinds of events that we'd like to have, that we'd like to host and sponsor, or co-host and co-sponsor with other groups in the city. And then also looking at our own internal calendar in terms of the timing out of those events, and also our discussions leading up to those events. The idea was that for the last several years, in part because of COVID, I'll say, we have not really been a public body. We haven't really had much of a presence. And the desire of many of the new commissioners over the last couple of years was for us to be more involved and engaged in the community, and not just to be a once-a-month group that talks about issues. But we felt like we needed an anchor and some folks in the commission to help us to think about what the priorities were and to get things going several months in advance of an event, because a month is clearly not enough time. And so that calendar committee really had great ideas in terms of its thinking, but it didn't generate. And so that's something else for us to think about, how and if we want to reestablish a subcommittee in that way. And so this is a time where we get to think through, I think, that the six of us and any other folks who are listening in, how is it that we want to go about doing our business? In years prior, we did not have subcommittees, as I said, but they evolved out of a need that we felt to move things along at a crisper pace and to have more engagement between meetings to make things happen. That said, everything is on the table. We're going into a new year, and I don't want to necessarily make assumptions that what we have been doing is what we continue to do, because it has to be based on our own ability to generate as a group. And 6 people is not a lot for commission, for sure. If we're talking about having several subcommittees, then we're talking about multiplying people's work schedules and such. And we need to be careful about how far we go in establishing these additional groups. So I want to leave it open now to a discussion from all of us to think about how is it that we can best do our business and what involvements do we want to have. So Wendy, go ahead. And then Philippe.
A question for Aaron. Is he still on? Because I'm not seeing everybody.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that from the day that I was in your office, Aaron, with Caitlin, was that subcommittees are not something that the other commissions are doing. And I'm wondering if we need to if we don't call them subcommittees, if then we are not constrained by the open meeting law. Let's say we just get together to talk about something and come back and report on that at the next Human Rights Commission. Is that something we can do, Aaron?
Yes, as long as there's not a quorum. If you don't have a quorum of the whole HRC, members can get together informally and do HRC work. When you create a formal subcommittee, that's when you run into issues with the open meeting law. If you have, say, a 3-member subcommittee, if 2 of you meet on the street and talk about something related to the HRC, technically, that should be a noticed meeting.
So I'm wondering if we can rename the way we are organizing so that we're not bound by the open meeting law.
I
Because
think
that's
you
basically
can.
what we're doing. What we're doing is we're meeting and then we're coming back to the commission anyway. So it sounds like to claim this to be subcommittees then makes it an official commitment that is bound by legal issues. And I think that that just gets cumbersome because that means that we can't just talk. Your thoughts, Aaron?
I think you are correct, and I don't know if it really even has to have a formal name. You could just, say, we're going to get together and work on this issue and we'll report back.
Okay.
So that's my input. I think it's really important that we have intentions and issues that we're looking at, and I would support us not calling them subcommittees.
Yes, go ahead, Win, and then Philippe.
Well, sorry, I didn't cut you off. But really, the Nature Gap Environmental Justice was the only subcommittee that really formally met. We're the ones who really kept notes and met several times. Most of the committees have been very informal. You and Daniel going to the school committee, council, meeting with the superintendent, and those have all been informal. You notes. You even been posting that meeting. So the environmental justice was the only one who was really a formal committee. And that format we just seemed to slow us down. It just meant an extra step of making sure the meeting was posted by Caitlin. But other than that, it seemed to work okay. So maybe it depends on what the kind of work the committee is doing. Because we had some formal meetings when we call in some people from the city to talk to us. We had to call in our special guests to talk to them. And so we're a little bit more formal in that regard. So it might just depend on what the subcommittee is doing, whether it's a formal committee or an informal committee.
Yeah, Irene, go ahead. Thank you, Win. Oh, I'm sorry, Philippe. I missed Philippe. Philippe first. I'm sorry. And then Irene.
The only thing I worry about is the lack of transparency with something informal and unrecorded. And also, I think it would be, I don't know, it just seems uncomfortable for me if we're not going to have formal subcommittees that parts of the Human Rights Commission meet, or is everybody going to be asked to join, or there's no transparency and there's no guarantee that every member is welcome. So it just makes me wonder a little bit about what the intention of that is, because right here in the meeting is the best place for us to discuss what kind of subcommittees that we need. And that's what this meeting time is for. But I do also think that, and agree with Wendy, that we need to have more opportunities. And I love the person who's clapping above their head below me. And thank you. Thank you so much. It just, there's got to be some mechanism that makes it fair and transparent. But I totally think that it would be great to have some informal discussions. But why bother when this is the place for those discussions?
Thank you, Philippe. Let's go. Irene, your thoughts?
Sure. So when I've been on other commissions, there weren't subcommittees, but say, for an example, you want more diversity on the board, that as a group, we all decided that was important. And then we just would divide out tasks, like somebody needs to talk to Northampton, someone needs to do this, someone needs to do that. And we'd go off, gathered our information, and then bring it back to the commission and have that discussion there and make decisions there, because you can't make them outside of the commission. There were no emails involved or anything. We just went and gathered our information and brought it back to the commission as a whole. And they weren't called subcommittees, but it seemed to work quite well.
That's certainly another model from your experience that could work. We've often wondered if 2 hours once a month is enough to work with all the information that is being input on multiple perspectives on multiple topics. But that would be another way to avoid the cumbersomeness of having subcommittees and having them work effectively and within the letter and spirit of both the ethics and the law. Philippe, back to you.
Just quickly, are we entitled to special meetings? Meetings that would occur more than once a month?
Yes, we have done that on occasion. And I think Whit pointed that out earlier, that in May we had at least 2 meetings and an attempt at a third that I guess was canceled. So we can call for special committee meetings, commission meetings, as long as, again, we follow the process for booking them in advance and so on. Not difficult to do if it's a committee of the entire commission. And I've often wondered if there are times during the year where we should be meeting more than once a month to get multiple issues moving forward. So
that's when we have met more than once, when something was a burning issue that we had time was of the essence, and we wouldn't be a special meeting. But it was out of emergency or a need more than just a routine.
Right. I mean, I acknowledge that everyone on this commission has multiple other commitments and obligations and so on. So, we want to take on what's reasonable to take on for a group of 6 people until we become a group of 8 or 9 people. But at this point, many of us are doubled up or tripled up on different topics of personal and city interest. Any other thoughts on this, and/or what kinds of topics? And let me say, in entering into this on a deeper level, that about 1.5 years ago, a few of us thought about the idea of having a retreat. There were challenges at that time because COVID was not allowing us to meet in person and so on.
Because it was the open meeting law.
Right, the open meeting law and such. But I've continued to think about if that would be possible, but it's challenging to do because, again, we can do something like that. We tried to have a meeting last month that was both in person and virtual. As long as we don't break into subgroups during such a retreat, I think we learned that it is possible to do. But at the time, we had so many new members. The idea was, let's get to know each other and let's get to know what our priorities are. And I don't know if there would be interest in thinking about doing something like that for the fall, so that we can have more time to really think through what do we want to do in 2022 to 2023 with more projects, possibly more events. Do we need more time to really think about our priorities? So there's a lot of pieces. Philippe, back to you.
I think a retreat is a great idea. It doesn't have to be something that where we go away and camp out for the week and try to survive in the wilderness.
Nope.
But it can be like an afternoon or a whole day with the lunch break in the middle, where we go to GCC or something and just have a nice roundtable conversation. That can also be filmed if you want that to be filmed. But I think that's a great idea for the fall.
Thank you, Felipe. Any other thoughts on that? I mean, we may need to take some more time. But yes, Aaron, go ahead.
Just to note, if there's a quorum getting together, it would have to be noticed as a meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And people would have to be invited and they could show up. And Philippe's point about being totally transparent is something that we need to consider. And we can take some time to think about that. Yes, Whit?
I was just thinking about when we first brought this up about a year and a half ago. Some concern was privacy issues. People didn't feel comfortable they didn't want to get to know each other on that level. And so that was some of the feedback, if you remember, Daniel, some feedback seemed to be, invasion of privacy, too personal, and that sort of stuff. It kind of surprised me, to be honest. I was kind of surprised. I was taking it back that people would think if you're working with people, we want to get to know them and know their background, know why they're here and why this work is important to them. So, I am totally on board with it. And facilitators, you do it in a safe way, in a structured way. I have confidence in Daniel and Irene, a social worker, and even Felipe as a tech guy, to be able to set an agenda and set a safe way of doing it where people would feel comfortable.
Right, thank you. And I should just note that some of the concerns that WID pointed to were with folks who are no longer on the commission. So it's a new ball game if we want to raise it and move forward with it. Empress, I think I saw a hand of yours. Did you want to say anything?
I did.
Please.
Back up with what Whit was saying, and I know that those individuals who felt like that are no longer here. But I would hope that nobody would really feel that way now, because I feel like, if your job is having a retreat, you would show up there. If your church was having a retreat, you would show up there. So if the Human Rights Commission, and we're all commissioners on this commission, decides to have a retreat, I don't understand why we can't get together and get to know each other on that level. I was saying this the other day in my speech that everybody wants to say community, 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 but if there's no unity, you cannot have community. And the best way to sit down and get to know each other is to come off the computer, come off of Zoom, and get to know each other on a more personal level. At the same time, we as human beings was not made not to have some kind of physical contact with each other. That's why we're here. That's how we get our energy. That's how things happen. So anyway, going off of that, so I would be more excited, like Felipe said, to actually get a retreat going where we could all come together and get to know each other. However, that would go about to make sure that it didn't break any laws or anything like that, and we was all within the guidelines. But I think that's an excellent idea that something like that happens.
Well, I appreciate people's positivity toward this. And I think we were hoping for that. We had a subcommittee that was actually planning it. And then that was scuttled. So, that's old news. And there's no reason that we can't look ahead to doing things differently in the way that's in the best spirit and interest of our commission and the people in it. And I think that would be the time, more than trying to do a 15 or 20-minute chock-a-block piece here, to really think through more thoroughly where do we want to go. And the timing of that would be earlier in the fall rather than later, so that we have more time to accomplish what we're hoping for and build the kind of spirit and camaraderie that we need. And I think that's been showing up the last couple of months with the events that we've been having and the opportunities to express and share in other public venues, mostly on the radio, but also in the newspaper. the idea that we exist and we want to work with people in different formats and move forward. So I would like to propose that we pick this up and move forward with it maybe in our August meeting, and try to cultivate in that meeting even a date that we want to do, and look to a location and try to get some specifics going so that we can give ourselves plenty of time to know that it's happening, people are more available. And we might even have another new member or two by then. It's hard to say. But is that sounds like that's an idea that's generally held by folks here. Is there anyone who has any concerns or questions about it? I'm not trying to railroad this through, but to give everyone an opportunity to discuss it. All right. Well, yes, Irene, back to you.
I'm sorry to even say this, but I guess for me, I'm kind of a work bee person. Like, I like figuring out what my tasks are and I like doing my tasks, but I don't think I'm a real retreat person. I'm not, even though I'm a social worker, hours of process is just, I just can't do it. Like, I love the idea, it's just not me. So, but that should not hold all of you up. And I guess, listening to all of you tonight, I appreciate all of this, but I don't know if I'm a good fit for this committee, only because I'm really a work bee. I'm not a process person. Sitting around for hours processing things it's painful.
I could certainly appreciate that. I do want to say non-defensively, but to respond to
I hope
you,
not. I didn't mean to offend anyone.
No. But so just so you know, I think the idea is to get this is kind of an initiative to do once, and as opposed to on an ongoing basis. In other words, I just think if we have more time to not so much process each other, but think through, how do we want to do this, or how that way we can have more forward motion in terms of these 2-hour meetings each month, knowing what we're moving forward on. Because I think last year we found that, and in past years, that we need much more time than one meeting to plan an event. We need sometimes 3 or even 4 months to do a little piece each month. And I know that the environmental justice nature gap thing event was challenged because there were a couple of roadblocks and obstacles, and it emerged, and it was wonderful, but there were several challenges where I think the thought was, I wish we'd had more time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm only suggesting not a navel gaze kind of a process, right? But it really an opportunity to think, what are our priorities? How do we want to move forward with them, and do some in-depth work with those pieces? That's where I'm. Yeah, Philippe.
Physical presence, as Empress mentioned, is very blessed, and it actually is very conducive to a lot of progress as well as a lot of enthusiasm. And I do understand, Irene, I really prefer to know what I'm supposed to do and then have that time on my own to go and do it, in the way that suits me best, and then bringing that back to the group. There's got to be a way that we can combine both of these elements.
And keep it as a safe place, Irene, where, people can just say pass. If there's a conversation that they don't want to participate in, we don't have to participate in it. But I see it as but we can focus on the process, the working part of it, while also getting to know each other, and feeling safe about that.
Any other thoughts on this? Because what we can do is we can really each now that it's come out in the way that it has, we can each give some more time in the next month, and then sort through this at our August meeting. And it could just be a half-day piece. It doesn't have to be a marathon. And I know when we met in person last month, all of us except for one, it's the first time we've done that. And many of us had never met each other in person, and there's a slightly different feel to that kind of a meeting. I think. And the hope is that we soon, and we'll find out from Aaron, when we can meet in person, when we have to meet in person, or whatever. The rules of the game are apt to change at some point or another. Yeah, Wendy, go ahead.
I guess just for clarity, for the makeup of this commission is pretty new for me. I mean, we've got the two new people that just started. Empress, you've been here since June? Is that right?
No,
May?
no, like, what was it? I think May, April. It was April, May. So
Yeah,
I was sworn in 2 months before June. Yeah.
Right. So you've been here since May. So that's right. That's three people that have been here in 3 months. I'm sorry, I can't control. I don't know how to do this on my phone. My apologies. And then I've only been on the commission for 2 years. Wid, you've been here for what? You've been here the longest.
Yeah, sometime in 2019.
And Daniel, you've been here for 3 years. I think this retreat idea really came from when we were talking about it, from like, how are we going to work? Because we're not a solid body yet. We've been working to become that. That's why we've got the onboarding. That's why we have the vision done. But now that we've got 3 new people, 3 older people, we're going to have 4 or 5 new people to really take the time to kind of structure how we're working. That wasn't really there previously. We didn't have an onboarding way. We didn't, the vision and the mission were 10, 20 years old. How do we want to work has not yet been defined. And I think that's the reason that we felt like a retreat would be helpful. Also because we're not meeting with each other. So it was like, all right, well, how do we do this in-person thing and move forward and as a cohesive group? So it wasn't the idea that, the commission should regularly have a retreat. It was to really move this forward to the next step. That might be really helpful. And I would still think that it would be.
My suggestion is let's let it go for now and come back to it next month because I think the idea of just letting things percolate and if people want to have conversations with each other about what suggestions could be made, we can throw those into it'll be a stone soup pot and we can see what comes up moving forward, understanding our, what each of us wants to do with it, what a larger goal would be and some more specific objectives, and see if there is some way of building a once for this next year type of get together. And hopefully we'll be able to, hopefully COVID won't rule over the possibility of getting together in person if that's what we choose to do. So any other comments on this piece before we move on? Okay, so we'll look at this in more depth next month. I want to check in before we do our elections to see if there's other new business that maybe has occurred since I put the agenda out late last week. If there's anything else, either from Irene and Philippe, not needing to put any pressure on you all, or from anyone else who would like to just raise questions or talk about anything in particular at this point. Try to get things on the agenda as they occur, as people write in to me, but if I don't get them, then it becomes new business. So, Philippe, yeah.
So if I do think of an agenda item, that's something that I will email you in the interim?
Well, whoever is the
Does it
chair,
have to be mentioned at the previous meeting to get on the agenda?
whoever, if I continue as chair, or if it's someone else is nominated and elected, the idea would be that they are the person who puts together the agenda. So as long as they have it a week in advance, it can then appear, because the agenda has to come out, as we know,
Right.
48 hours before,
Right.
yada, yada, yada. So it does not have to be discussed in the meeting before the next meeting. It can be, but if it doesn't, it's something that can occur to any of us 2 weeks later, even 3 weeks later, and just say, I'd like to get this on, and then we'll put it on. And, you know, if someone wants to facilitate that, it doesn't have to even be the chair. So at least that's the way I'd like to see it. It's kind of, if someone has a topic, then, and they want to facilitate that topic, fabulous. So if not, then I think the idea of going into this, as I said, this is our election meeting. And as folks know, or may not know, but I think it's in the onboarding booklet, every year we have to elect our officers, the chair, the vice chair, and a clerk for 1 year. And then I believe there are statutes about how long one can serve in a particular role, elected role. I believe it's 2 years consecutively. But if no one else is nominated, obviously, for a particular position, it is possible to go beyond that. And I believe, Aaron, you and I did have a conversation about that. Is that correct? In the last couple of weeks, just to confirm that?
I consulted with the city clerk, and the limit for serving in the same officer role is 2 terms on the HRC. So that would be a total of 6 consecutive years.
Right. The term being the 3-year process.
And,
right.
And there's no limit on serving on the commission.
Right. So thank you for that information. And, you know, we're still, given that we've had some turnover and whatnot, the idea would be to nominate and then second and go from there for each particular role. And those roles would become effective as of the end of this meeting. And of course, Aaron would then report that to the mayor so that that's known. And, you know, if there's any questions about what each role does, we can certainly talk about that. But I don't want to beat that into the ground if it's not necessary. So any comments or questions before we kind of enter into nominations and seconds and voting and such? You're all in stunned silence, I see. So, okay. And again, we would need a nomination and a second for a candidate to go forward, assuming they want to. And I guess we'll start with the chair of the commission. And is there anyone who would like to nominate someone to serve as chair for 2022, 2023? Philippe?
I'd like to nominate Daniel. After what I've seen during this meeting, I think you're just a really judicious, fair, friendly, and interesting person to lead.
Okay, usually it's not a time for eulogies, but I appreciate the feedback. That's fabulous. Thank you.
I second that motion.
Okay, so Empress seconds the motion. So I will enter myself in, and at the same time, in being fair and judicious, as you just said, are there any other nominations for chair? Okay, that's the 7-second rule. So then I will stand for chair again for next year. Is there any, do we need to do Robert's rules? Is there a need for discussion on this? I think we could just vote. I think we could just go ahead and vote. Last year, there was some speechifying. I think we can avoid that. So I'll close my eyes for the moment.
Can we do a roll call vote?
Yeah, we'll need to do a roll call vote. So let's go ahead with this.
Let's go ahead with
If you're in favor of electing me again as chair. Please say your name and.
We'll go from there.
Irene.
With parity, I vote.
That was chaotic. Maybe I should orchestrate this a little better. In no particular order, Empress,
Let the
how do
clerk
you
do the
vote?
roll.
Huh?
Let Wade call out names.
Oh, Wid, would you do the honor then, please? Good idea. You're the clerk.
Wendy Goodman, what is your vote?
Yes.
Empress, what is your vote?
Yes.
Felipe, what is your vote?
Yes.
And Irene, what is your vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Then I'll vote yourself.
Am I allowed to vote for myself or do I have
I'm allowed
to?
to vote for myself.
No, I think you
Aaron,
vote for
a
yourself.
ruling on that? Can I vote for myself?
I don't think there's any
I
restriction.
don't think there's any restriction. I can
All right, well, I'm
You
all in.
could abstain.
I don't know. There's something, why would, I mean, I'm happy to vote for myself. Why not? So, okay, so we've
Make it unanimous.
okay, well, thank you all for that.
Well, thank you all for that.
I appreciate
I
your
appreciate your
trusting my leadership.
trusting my
again, moving
leadership
forward.
again moving forward.
And now we'll go ahead and
Now we'll go ahead
take
and
nominations for vice chair.
nominations for vice chair.
Okay, Empress.
Okay, Empress.
Felipe.
I couldn't quite hear that.
I could that.
I nominate Felipe for chair.
Do we have a second for Felipe?
I
Wendy, is
second
a-
that.
You'll
I
second
second
that?
that. Mhm.
Okay. Okay, Felipe,
Okay,
what do you
Felipe,
say
what
to
do you
standing for
say
that role?
Thank you.
Okay, so you'll stand for the
Okay, so
position.
you'll
of vice
stand for the
chair.
position of vice chair.
At the same time, let me ask if there are any other
Is there
nominations?
any other
Vice chair.
vice chair?
Okay, so Felipe has entered in as a candidate for vice chair, and Wid, would you mind doing a roll call for that?
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna do it as I see it on the screen. So I vote yes. Daniel, how do you vote?
I'll vote yes.
Irene, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Wendy, how do you vote? Couldn't hear you.
Yes, sorry, yes.
Okay. That's fine. And Empress, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wow.
And Felipe, are you interested in making a vote?
My vote is, may the heavens help me. No, I'll vote yes, make it unanimous. Thank you so much,
We
everybody.
certainly will help you. You won't be alone in that role.
Well,
Excellent.
I think Felipe, it'll bring you some perspective because you were here before. So you have some of the corporate historic knowledge of what went on in the past, even before I was here. And that will help us with historic, because we lost all our historic viewpoints to the people who left. And so I think your insight of the past will help us. And Wendy, I think you're too busy as it is, so you didn't need the extra stress of being the vice chair while the stuff you're doing. So give you a pass for your.
That's okay. I had no interest in being the vice chair unless it was necessary. So I'm thrilled that Felipe is picking it up. It's not a role that I really wanted. It's one that I would have accepted if needed. So thank you though, Wid. And thank you, Felipe. Philippe.
Okay, so.
That's okay, I like
Philippe-
Felipe too.
Oh, okay.
Philippe, so Philippe will be the vice chair for next year. And I also just want to say before we move on, I want to offer deep appreciation to Wendy for filling in so capably in a challenging time, in a challenging situation, Wendy. It was great to work with you in that, and you really stepped up and stepped in, and I really thank you for all of us. It was not easy, and you got a lot done in a short time. So thank you.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
All right. So now we'll move on to clerk. And just to say, Whit, as long as I've been serving since 2019, I think you have been the clerk, and maybe before that. But as we learned from Aaron, there's really, you're still safely, I believe, within the realm of not having exhausted your 6 years maximum. I don't believe, because I don't think you were on at that point. So that's not to lead anywhere necessarily, but just to say that if you are nominated, you're still eligible. So are there, Wendy?
I'd like to nominate Wid for clerk.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Philippe seconds. Okay, any other nominations for clerk for the 2022-23 year? Wid, what do you say to standing for election? Will you do it?
Oh, all right.
I couldn't pull your arm any harder.
I'm glad it's as much of an honor to us as it is to you.
Well, just, my background, my career's been administrative. I was a yeoman in the Navy for 23 years, and then, my civilian, since retired from the Navy, my civilian is administrative type stuff, and so it comes naturally for me. So I don't mind using my talent if no one else is interested.
All right. Well, would you do the honor of a roll call so we can see where this goes?
As I see people across the screen today,
Yes. Yes.
Daniel,
I vote yes.
Irene,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes.
and Empress.
Yes.
Right. And I abstain because I'm a humble, shy type guy. So.
All right. Well, you still win anyway. So 501. So that's those are our officers for next year going forward. And that will appear in the minutes. And I guess, Aaron, if you want to go ahead, knowing that the election was tonight, and pass that forward to the mayor, that would be wonderful. Having completed the elections, what I see on the agenda at this point, this might be an early end to our meeting, is just to announce that we will meet again as scheduled on the second Monday of August, which is August 8th at 6 o'clock. We don't know how exactly yet. We'll get that information, I think, from you, Aaron, fairly soon. So for the time being, please just hold your calendars from 6 to 8 p.m. on Monday, August 8th. And I guess the next thing is to entertain a motion to adjourn. Philippe?
Oh, just very quickly, August 8th is my birthday, so I would be honored and happy to be at the meeting, but I will expect, if it is in person, gifts and a cake. And I will make a motion to adjourn.
Well, I just want to say before we vote on that today has been my first wedding anniversary. So thank you for joining me for that.
Thank you.
I would like to say I knew there was a reason for Felipe over the past year. We just can't get enough of each other. That's my father's birthday is August 8th.
Oh, wow.
And Matthew Hansen.
I knew there was some connection with us over the past year. We just can't let each other go.
Very lovely.
Wow.
Very lovely. All right. So there's a lot of synergy. With. Yeah.
Daniel, do you have Felipe's and Irene's emails?
Yes, I can send those to you.
Yes, so I can. I just want to say, especially for the newcomers, even though Felipe, you've done this before, and this is old hat stuff to you, and Irene, you've been doing this stuff on other commissions and other committees for a long time, but it's just an exciting time for the HRC. As Daniel was talking about, we have been kind of visible for a long time. We're coming out of the shadows now, I think, because of Daniel's leadership in the last year has really changed things. And the new people coming on, Empress has been so impressive. And now with you two, and a hope for a few more people, it's an exciting time for PRC. We don't have to get it done tomorrow. We don't have to, do it all right now. But as long as we keep moving forward, we're doing the work that is asked of us. That's how we can really do. So it's going to be fun.
That's great, Wid. Thank you. That's a nice closing thought for the evening. And so a motion to adjourn and a second. Anyone there? Empress? Yes, motion? Anyone?
Yes, motion adjourned.
All right, you got the motion. Anyone going to second it? Philippe, okay.
Second.
All in favor, let's do a roll call and then we could say goodnight. Care to do the roll call? With
Yes.
Daniel, motion to adjourn.
yes.
Irene,
Yes.
and Wendy.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm sorry, the last one on the screen. Actually, Nick Ring is the last one, but he's not, doesn't really exist. So, Empress,
Yes.
to adjourn.
So we're all set to adjourn. Well, thank you all. And I wish everyone a good month in the interim. And we will meet again on August 8th. So be well, be safe, and look forward to being with you all again.